and talk about college football versus college basketball. National championship. The SEC hasn't won it in what now? 2 years? There's speculation that people think that it's going to be a third year with the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the ACC. It's not going to be the SEC, which means college basketball, which is having an epic year, like one of the best years we've ever seen in the sport for a conference, might have an opportunity to win a national championship. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make our cases why the SEC is going to win a national championship in football first or basketball first. I'm pro football. You're pro basketball. You have the floor, my friend.
Yeah, I think it's really I think it's going to be this year. That's why, I mean, if you gave me Auburn, Alabama, and Florida on the hardwood this year versus the field, I would take that. I know that's 3 compared to the other 65 teams that would be in the tournament at that point. But I feel like, again, we always say the national championship or the field, or these group of teams are the field. It's like, how many teams can really compete for a national title? In basketball, I think it's those 3, Duke, and I think probably Houston, and you maybe can throw Iowa State in there. And that's 3 of those teams I think can truly win the national title, not just get to the Final Four. That's 3 potential 1 seeds. I don't think we get 3 1 seeds, but I do think Florida has a real shot to win the national title. I think Alabama's ceiling's that, and certainly Auburn's got the highest floor, massive gap. But then I just think in football right now, I don't feel great about it next year. Again, it's early, Bear. We're not even in spring ball yet, but I just don't think – I think there's going to be a lot of young defenses in this league. I think Alabama probably going into the year as the best defense. Georgia's going to be really young. They're breaking in another quarterback with Gunnar Stockton. I just don't think next year is the SEC either. I hope I'm wrong. I just think the SEC is about to, you mentioned, potentially going on a third year running. SEC basketball, too early to tell for next year because you're building a roster year to year much more than you even are in college football. But I think this year, I do think we end the streak. I mean, last time the SEC won a national championship in basketball, 2012, Kentucky. Before that, Florida, 05, 06. Then before that, it was Arkansas, the early 90s. So we haven't had a lot of teams, especially outside of Kentucky, win national championships in basketball. I think this year will be it. Now, obviously, I don't think Kentucky will be one of those teams. I'm going to go basketball just this year. I think it's got to be this year. If it wasn't this year, Bear, I may go football, but that's how confident I am in the SEC this year in basketball. And I just think football next year, I don't think is going to do it as we stand right now. So I'm going to lean basketball right now.
Here's why I counter-argue basketball. They're having such an epic year right now. Like, how many teams are ranked inside the top 25? 8, 9 right now in basketball. 11, 12, 13 are expected to make the tournament if, like, the season were to end today, according to Joe Lunardi. It's like an incredible year. It never happens in the incredible year, in my opinion. It always happens in the year where you least expect it, where there's one dominant team, and then everybody else just kind of falls in line where you're like, nope, nobody is beating this roster. Nobody was beating Kentucky in 2012. Nobody was beating Florida in 2005. Those rosters were on their own level. Like, beating those teams felt like it was David versus Goliath, in my opinion. Where with these teams, a number 5 Tennessee can lose to a number 15 Missouri. A number 4 Alabama can lose to a number 24 Ole Miss. Because if it's happened, you can see Kentucky drop a game, but yet somehow get a signature win against a top 5 team. That's what I have my questions with. That eventually we're going to see all these teams play against each other. They're going to get tired. They're not going to go on that epic run. And then we may see 1 or 2 teams make it to the Elite 8. But a lot of us are predicting it should be closer to 6 or 7 because that's what the numbers said. Look at how many teams are ranked inside the top 10 every single week. With Tennessee, with Alabama, Mississippi State's in the top 15, Missouri's flirted with the top 15, Kentucky's flirted with the top 10. You got Auburn at number 1 with the highest floor. So it's like, I have this theory that in a year where it's so special in the regular season, it's not going to happen, and it's least expected.
Bear, here you go. Here's a question for you. How many teams do you think in the SEC as we stand today? Again, we had a whole other portal cycle of spring ball, but on February 24th, can win the national championship in football going into the year next year? You think they win the whole thing, not just a couple of games?
At their peak, I would say guaranteed 4 with the potential of 5. Number 1, Georgia. It's Georgia. Number 2, Texas. If Arch Manning is as advertised, they can win the national championship. Number 3 is LSU. Let me explain. They have the veteran quarterback. Alabama's breaking in a new quarterback. Ole Miss is breaking in a new quarterback. Florida is finally giving the reins to DJ Lagway. What are we going to see from the Norris Sellers and Nico Iamaleava next year? I think their schedule is very manageable outside of the game against Clemson. They have Garrett Nussmeier. They have more offensive pieces to count. They have a stable defense now. They should be a 10-win team. At their peak, if Garrett Nussmeier is as advertised, they should be able to win a national championship. Their defense has to deliver. Their offensive line has to deliver, but they can win it. Number 4 is Alabama. I think the addition of Ryan Grubb was the biggest addition for Alabama this offseason because he has worked with offensive lines. He has worked with the quarterbacks. He has worked with every position underneath Kalen DeBoer. And if DeBoer has to leave to go land a 5-star recruit, he can run practice. He can do everything that's necessary. I love the addition of Ryan Grubb. And then number 5 for me, honestly, I think it's scary, but humor me. Ole Miss in a year where nobody expects them to do anything, why couldn't they? And the same thing goes for Tennessee. What if Nico Iamaleava hits that next stride? What if
but you think they can win it all, though?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Not just win a couple games in the playoffs.
What if the offensive line is better next year? And they still have they lost multiple pieces defensively. They did, but they still have they still have Jamar McCoy. They still have Boo Carter. They still have multiple stars on that defensive line. And they also, I think, can have a better wide receiver play with Mike Matthews and Chris Brazzell.
I just don't know if Heupel can go win that many kind of caliber games in a row to go win it. And I know you're not saying they will. You just think they're that caliber. That's why I'm like, truly, who could win it all? I don't know if Georgia will next year because I'm like, how young they are defensively, breaking into quarterback. I mean, you go back historically, that doesn't happen. So I don't know if they can make the playoffs, certainly. They can maybe win the SEC again. I just think winning it all, I mean, I like Alabama to win it all for them just because what they got coming back on defense. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm going to probably say 3 teams can win it all next year. And I don't feel great about Bama, but I would say Texas, LSU, you're right. Again, I think they'll be better. And I would say Alabama. Right now, Georgia I still think has a lot to show me. Ole Miss still, I don't know if Lane's that guy can go win that many great games, that many like competitive games at that level, that many times in a row to be that consistent, to go win the whole thing. Certainly make. If you say who can make the playoffs, much bigger list, obviously. But I think truly winning it all, I mean, I usually say every year there's really only 3 to 4 teams. I think 2 to 4 teams that can really truly win the whole thing going into it. And we saw it. I think Ohio State was certainly one of those teams going into the year. I mean, I made a bet going into the year, folks. Georgia and Ohio State versus the field. Middle of the year, I was getting towards the end of the year, I was getting a little concerned, I'll be honest with you. But Ohio State ended up winning the bet for me. And again, I thought those were 2 teams that could legitimately win the whole thing. I just don't think there's that many teams year out that you can go win a couple games. But just like we talked about with the basketball side of things, yeah, there's a difference between just going to the Final Four and winning it all. I know surface level, we're all like, well, no kidding, dude, no shit, Dave. It's 2 + 2 = 4. But to go win the whole thing's a totally different kind of gear. So I think that's where me and you would agree to disagree a little bit more on that.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. Even if you miss the first few minutes of a game or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet win. Just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today. That's FanDuel.com/SECU for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Disclaimer: must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino and 18 plus in DC. First online real money wagers only. $5 first deposit is required. A bonus issues with non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back to the show. I think the big thing when it comes to football right now is that I'm not sure that there is a guaranteed favorite. There isn't. I look at Ohio State. Ohio State, okay, you have the best defensive player returning. You lost your offensive coordinator. You lost your defensive coordinator. You also are losing ample production on both sides of the ball. Notre Dame, I think that you're in a good spot when it comes to returning talent, but the quarterback is the most important player. What do you like in Steve Angeli, or what do you like in CJ Carr? What about Penn State? It feels like it's an all-in year. Very much like Ole Miss last year. Do you underachieve this season? So I look at the SEC and I say to myself, well, I didn't think that Tennessee was ready to take that step like they were in 2023. They did. So why am I going to doubt that Nico this year, with a full season of reps underneath his belt, can't get better? Same thing with Florida if they start hitting their stride defensively. Same thing with South Carolina if all their pieces come to play. Missouri has the most workable schedule in the SEC. They don't leave Memorial Stadium until October 18th. Just don't lose to both Alabama and South Carolina, and you stand a shot. And then I look at LSU, I look at Ole Miss, and I look at Alabama and Texas and Georgia. All of them have proven to me that they can get 10 wins, and they have top 5 coaches. And you want me to doubt them? In a year where I feel like the SEC is going to be doubted, it's a year to where I think they can strike. In a year where so much has gone right for the SEC in basketball, I feel like that they're going to come up short, and that we're going to watch as a St. John's or a Baylor or an Iowa State, or as you mentioned, who is the other one in the Big 12? Houston.
Houston.
They end up cutting down the nets in San Antonio. Like that's my personal belief at this point.
Yeah. Again, I'm gonna take the. That's just this year so far. The SEC. I'm gonna go SEC in basketball, as wild as that is to say, Bear.
And I'm going to go SEC in football in 2025. But let us know in the comment section down below, what do you think happens first? Is Dave right and basketball cuts down the nets in San Antonio? Or am I right and going to Miami? We will see an SEC team be back on top as it's well deserved.